So, you just found out you're pregnant as a Native American in the year 1456. But there's no pee stick to confirm it. No doctor nodding at an ultrasound. Not even a Facebook group to freak out in. Just you, your sore boobs, a strange craving for pine bark, and an elder who says the baby will come when the moon tells it to. There's no baby shower, no gender reveal fireworks, and definitely no maternity leggings. Your bumps start showing, and instead of shopping for cribs, you're gathering firewood and eating whatever you can find that doesn't taste like tree bark. Morning sickness? That's not a symptom, that's a sign. The tribe might say it means your baby has a strong spirit, or that you're carrying twins, or that you just ate a weird mushroom. So don't go anywhere, because by the end of this video, you're gonna find out how Native American women gave birth in the wild with no hospitals, no pain meds, and no help from men. And wait till you hear what they did with the placenta.
As a Native American, there was no Google, no how to tell if I'm pregnant search bar, no pregnancy apps tracking baby's size from poppy seed to watermelon. You either missed your moon cycle, or something inside you started moving like it was testing for a black belt. That was your confirmation. Again, congratulations.
Food cravings? You didn't get midnight ice cream runs. You got whatever nature had growing. Berries, roasted corn, dried meat, maybe a bit of wild honey if the bees were feeling generous. And if you suddenly wanted clay or ash, nobody thought you were weird. Studies say they thought the baby was making its preferences known. Whenever you had morning sickness, the tribe's medicine woman had your back. She'd hand you herbs, teas, or smoke bundles to ease the nausea and swelling. No pills, no ginger chews, just leaves, and maybe vibes. And the interesting fact was, they worked. But here's the thing. Pregnancy wasn't hidden. There were no oversized hoodies or awkward should I tell people yet phases. It was celebrated. You weren't just a mom-to-be. You were a portal for life. Elders gave you blessings. Aunties taught you what to expect. The entire tribe treated you like you were carrying royalty. Researchers like Robbie Davis Floyd, a medical anthropologist who studied traditional birth across cultures, found that Native American women weren't passive patients. They were respected participants. In fact, birth was considered a ceremony, not a crisis. The Navajo, for example, believed that childbirth aligned with the natural order of the universe, and everything, the direction you faced, the songs sung, the herbs used, was intentional. And don't think you could use pregnancy as a free pass to overeat. The whole eating for two thing? Not a thing. If you tried it, Grandma would eye your bowl like a hawk and calmly take half your food. We're all eating for something, she'd say, scooping your corn right off your plate. It was a time of honor, but also reality. You still had chores. You still had to walk. And you had to listen to a bunch of old women tell you how they gave birth during a thunderstorm while skinning a deer. No pressure, right? And since there were no birthing classes at the local community center, the women in your tribe taught you everything. How to breathe through pain, how to squat without falling over, how to listen to your body instead of panicking. They told you labor was a warrior's path, not a medical crisis. There were no machines, but there was power, emotional, spiritual, and physical. The tribe believed a strong mind made a stronger mother. They didn't fear birth, they prepared for it. Like going into battle, but with more crying and fewer spears. Maybe, depending on the tribe. So now it's happening. Labor has kicked in. And you're not rolling into a hospital room with beeping monitors or a nurse asking, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? Nope. You're in a hut, or maybe a tent, or outside near a fire because the tribe believed Mother Earth should witness the moment. You'd be surrounded by the women of your community, midwives, aunties, maybe your mom if she wasn't too busy roasting fish. The space would be warm, sacred, and prepared with care. The floor would be lined with soft buffalo hide, maybe moss or rabbit fur if you were lucky. Definitely no mattress, just fur, firelight, and focus. And you weren't lying down. Oh no, you were squatting, kneeling, or even hanging onto a birth rope tied to a ceiling beam or tree. Why? It's because of gravity. Native Americans believed the baby should drop like nature intended. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. And the soundtrack? Oh, it was a vibe. The wind, rustling outside, fire crackling, maybe grandma softly chanting an old birthing song, and some distant voice yelling, "Go get more hot water," even though no one knew what it was for. Seriously, why was hot water the universal labor reaction? Even before indoor plumbing.
Now, once labor kicked in for real, the men were politely told to stay very far away, unless they were trained spiritual helpers. This was strictly women's business, and the ones running the show, the midwives. These weren't just old ladies with experience, they were the tribe's birth bosses. They knew exactly where to press, when to chant, and how to catch a slippery newborn with one hand while stirring soup with the other. You didn't get pain meds, but you got herbs that worked, chants that calmed your soul, and pressure massages that somehow knew where the pain lived. One would rub your back while another whispered prayers. It was support, not sedation. And sure, there was no epidural. But guess what? There were also no hospital gowns, no cold metal stirrups, and no surprise bills for $7,000 just to hold your own baby. There were no fetal monitors, no loud alarms, just breath, muscle, ancient wisdom, and a whole lot of grit. Every push was met with encouragement. Every cry was answered with steady hands. And when that baby finally entered the world, the whole space shifted. Not with chaos, but with calm. Because this wasn't seen as danger. This was seen as power. And you, wrapped in fur and firelight, had just done the most human thing in the oldest way possible. So the baby's out, crying, breathing, perfect. But we're not done yet. Now it's time to deal with the cord. And let's just say there were no sanitized scissors or plastic clamps waiting on a tray. Native American midwives used what they had. And what they had was sharp obsidian blades, carved bone knives, or stones heated over fire. Not exactly hospital-grade equipment, but it worked. And they were good at it. Like, really good. Once that cord was cut, things got spiritual real fast. Some tribes would save a small piece of the umbilical cord and wrap it in hide or cloth, creating a protective charm for the child to wear or carry later in life. It was believed to offer strength, grounding, or even guidance from the ancestors. And the placenta? They didn't throw it out like trash. Oh no, that thing got a ceremony. Some tribes buried it near sacred trees, others placed it under the family's home. All because they believed the placenta connected the child to the earth, the spirit world, or the life force that flows through all living things. Ethnographic studies published by the Smithsonian's Bureau of American Ethnology also describe placenta burial rituals. Among tribes like the Iroquois and Apache, the placenta wasn't seen as waste. It was honored, sometimes buried under a tree or near the home to symbolize the child's lifelong bond with the earth. It was believed that where the placenta lay, the child's spirit would always return. And if you think that sounds intense, just imagine trying to explain it to your OBGYN. These rituals weren't random. They were rooted in deep respect for life, and not just the baby's life, but the process itself. In Native cultures, everything had meaning. Every action was part of a bigger circle. Cutting the cord wasn't just a medical step. It was a moment of release and reconnection. One life entering the world, another piece returning to it. In the Native American world, post-birth recovery was real, just not in the way modern moms might picture it. No 6-week follow-up appointment. You had a baby. Good and fine. Now, it was time to get on with life. Most mothers rested for a few days. Yes, they were respected, honored, and often cared for by the women around them. But you'd be amazed how quickly many were up and moving. Like walking around the fire pit with a newborn strapped to their back, while casually grinding corn. Because life didn't pause. And there was no such thing as maternity leave. The tribe didn't have an HR department. What they did have was a tribe. A real one, full of sisters, aunties, cousins, and wise old women who stepped in and helped without being asked. They cooked, cleaned, cradled the baby when your arms gave out. They sang songs, gave you warm tea, and reminded you that you weren't alone. As for the baby, wrapped tight in a cradle board, they were often strapped to mom's back or leaned against a tree while she worked. The design wasn't just cozy, it was genius. It protected the baby's head, kept their posture straight, and allowed moms to move freely. Some cradle boards were decorated with beads, feathers, or family symbols. So yes, your baby had fashion and function. And let's be clear, there was no postpartum spa package waiting for you. Your spa was a cold river and a handful of healing herbs. You'd go down to the water, wash up, maybe rub some pine or sage oil on your legs if someone gifted it to you. That was your luxury treatment. And if you said you were tired, Grandma would smile, then hand you laundry. Still, it wasn't harsh. It was beautiful in its own raw way. These women were strong, and not because they had to pretend they weren't in pain, but because they were deeply supported, emotionally and spiritually. They trusted their bodies. They trusted each other. And even without stretch mark creams or lactation consultants, they figured it out together. So while you're lying in bed with your heating pad and snack tray, bless you, just know that 500 years ago, a mom was walking 2 miles with a swaddled baby, a basket of berries, and no complaints. So while mom was in a hut pushing a baby out with the help of midwives, herbs, and gravity, where was dad? Well, let's just say he wasn't pacing the hallway with a cigar in his mouth. In many Native American tribes, childbirth was considered women's sacred domain, and not in a men aren't allowed to care kind of way, but more like, don't mess up the energy in here with your nervous breathing. Fathers had a role, absolutely, but it was quiet, spiritual, and sometimes completely outside the birthing space. Some dads would fast for days leading up to the birth, purifying themselves as a spiritual offering for the safety of mother and child. Others sat by the fire in a separate tent, praying, chanting, or creating protection charms made from feathers, carved wood, or leather to place near the baby after birth. If a man was known to be spiritually connected, he might stay close, but usually his job was to stay calm, stay out of the way, and prepare for fatherhood with reverence. And here's the funny part. In some tribes, if dad so much as looked nervous or anxious near the birthing tent, grandma would straight up kick him out. No pep talk, no it's okay to cry. She'd just squint at him and say something like, "You can come back when you're not useless." Because let's be real, if he fainted during labor, nobody brought him juice. They just handed him a spear and said, "Go hunt something and come back when you've grown a backbone." But the absence wasn't neglect. It was intentional. The tribe understood that the birth space had to be stable, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And if dad's energy didn't support that, he could help from afar. That said, fathers were deeply involved once the baby was born. They would help bless the newborn, often offer the first gift, sometimes an item from their own childhood, like a bead, a carved totem, or even part of a medicine pouch. Some tribes had ceremonies where the father would introduce the baby to the earth, touching their tiny feet to the ground as a sign of connection and welcome. Fatherhood wasn't about being the loudest in the room or cutting the cord with scissors. It was about being steady, being present in spirit, and protecting the journey from a quiet distance. So while modern dads might be holding hands and coaching breathing in the delivery room, and good for them, Native fathers held space in another way. They stood with strength, behind the curtain, knowing their job wasn't to lead in that moment, but to guard the space where life began. And that kind of quiet strength, that's still fatherhood, just in its most ancient, grounded form. So you might be wondering, what's the takeaway here? What can modern moms possibly learn from women who gave birth without electricity, epidurals, or a single YouTube tutorial? Actually, quite a lot. First, Native American women didn't treat birth like a medical emergency. It wasn't something to fear or dread. It was a normal, powerful part of life, a rite of passage, a sacred transition. They weren't rushed into delivery rooms of bright lights and 10 strangers shouting, "Push!" They were guided by rhythm, breath, tradition, and most importantly, trust. Trust in their bodies, in the process, and in the women who had walked that path before them. That's another thing. They didn't do it alone. Birth wasn't an isolated event between one mom and one doctor behind a curtain. It was a community experience. You had support, real support, in the form of hands, songs, meals, prayers, and time. Your sisters were there, the aunties were there, the midwives, the elders, even the other kids might be peeking in to see their new cousin take his first breath. That kind of communal care, that's what a lot of moms today are missing. You get the baby, but sometimes lose yourself in the silence that follows. You get offered baby formula, but not someone to hold your hand at 2 a.m. You're told you got this, but no one's actually got you. But no one's saying we should all go back to cutting cords with heated stones, or getting birth in a moss-lined hut, although admitted, it sounds kind of amazing. But maybe we can bring back some of what worked. The wisdom of nature, the importance of rest and bouncing back, the power of women supporting women, and the reminder that birth isn't just about pain or biology, it's about becoming. Because these women, they weren't just pushing out babies. They were passing down strength, soul, and spirit into every new generation. With no Wi-Fi, no monitors, no painkillers, just presence, just power. And in Native American cultures, welcoming a newborn wasn't a party. It was a sacred event. There were no posts saying, "Welcome to the world, sweet angel," with 10 hashtags and a filter. Instead, there were songs sung around the fire, quiet prayers whispered to the sky, and rituals that had been passed down for generations. Because this wasn't just a baby, it was a new soul, a new part of the tribe's story. And guess what? The baby didn't always get a name right away. In many tribes, names were earned, felt, or revealed through visions, dreams, or signs from nature. Maybe a certain bird flew by when the baby cried. Maybe it started raining the moment they were born. Maybe an elder dreamed of a bear the night before. That's how names like Running Cloud, Little Bear, or Thunder Girl came to be. It wasn't random. It was deeply intentional. Now about the baby gear. There were no onesies or footy pajamas with tiny bear ears on the hood. If you were lucky, you got a soft fur wrap and maybe a cradle board, which was basically a baby carrier meets a baby bed, but way cooler. These weren't just practical, they were art. Each cradle board was decorated with beads, feathers, or family patterns to show the child's heritage. It was like wearing your family tree on your back, literally. And let's not forget introductions. No handing the baby around a circle while people say, "He has your eyes." Nope. The child would be introduced to the elements, touched gently to the earth, lifted towards the sky, sometimes sprinkled with water or shown to the fire. It was the tribe's way of saying, "You belong to this world, and it belongs to you." That baby wasn't just part of a family. They were a part of nature, the ancestors, the story. Now for the fun part. With no birth certificates and no online forms, you could end up with a nickname that stuck way too hard. You cried a lot? Boom, little yells a lot. You came out with a wild head of hair? Windhead. You peed on grandma? That name would follow you into adulthood. With pride. But behind the laughs, there was deep respect. The baby was seen as sacred. The first few days of life were treated with care, quietness, and love. Not rushed, not noisy. Just the slow unfolding of a new life. So whether you're a new mom, a someday mom, or someone who just loves weird history, maybe the lesson is this. You don't need a perfect nursery or fancy diaper bag to be ready. You just need a village, a deep breath, and a little reminder that your body was built for more than fear. It was built for life. And if you do have modern comforts, enjoy them. Use the epidural, take the bubble bath, but don't forget that somewhere in your bloodline, there was a woman who gave birth beside a fire, under the stars, with nothing but her breath, her belief, and her tribe. She made it. And so will you. If you laughed, learned, or just feel thankful you didn't have to give birth next to a campfire, hit like, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more weird history that actually matters.